We were supposed to go over, chance to go over a lot, so this week. Chance to go over the- On chapter 4, 1 through 7, we went over with your handouts, if you have them, chapter 4, 7 through 12. You remember that? Mm-hmm. We'll look at that. So, Ecclesiastes chapter 6 we're going to look at tonight. We're going to go back over a few of the handouts that we had. The first one was in chapter 4, 7 through 12, and the theme was a good friend. So hopefully you got a chance to go over some of it. I'll go over a little bit of the parts of chapter 4. So if you have your handouts, those of you who are watching via the web, you also can go online, and where it says Ecclesiastes Bible Study Notes, you'll see that link there. You can look on that and tag along with us. We're in chapter 4, and in chapter 4 we talked about a good friend and how two people are better than one. The purpose that we felt that is important to kind of get an idea of community, and that's what we talked about, that we believe that was a sense of community. And what also I thought was important in chapter 5, a key verse that I thought was very significant in chapter 4, was the idea of you are seeing the evil oppressor. I think that's in one of the verses that talk about in verse 2. Verse 4, that how people want to achieve things because they see somebody else achieve it, or they want something else has. So this is one of the things I thought was really interesting in chapter. Also the issue of people oppressing other people. We talked a little bit about that. It was also in chapter 4, as well as the whole verse where it says 2 are better than 1, verse 9. Some of the promises, it says the rest of the promises that I was looking at, one of the promises was the community of 2 people being better than 1. That was one of the promises we talked about. Trying to achieve things to show off was vanity. That was one of the things that we could look for as a promise. And that when people, seems like the powerful oppress the weak, and that the weak have hope in God. That was in chapter 4. I think one of the main applications of it is that we're going to see oppression in life, and that we can look towards God as our chapter 5, we looked at the next one, through 7. If you have your handout in chapter 5, 1 through 7. The theme of it is worship in relationship. And we're looking at Ecclesiastes, how we can look at, we talked a little bit about that last week, that the seriousness of what it means to worship God. Don't make any rash vows that you can't complete. As we talked about last week in chapter 5, that if you say something, make sure that you keep your word, and the best way to do that is don't make any promises, and to be sincere. We talked about the seriousness of what it means to worship God. And one of the things we saw, another aspect of that he pointed out too in chapter 5, was that he always has a way of looking at the rich oppressing the poor, and that it seems like the rich get richer. He knows that too in chapter 5. One of the things that we would look at in chapter 5 is, I think one of the things it says here is sins to avoid. Sins to avoid, I think, is the main thing he was talking about is attitude in worship. Make sure that you don't see worship of God as something that about that. And then the third page we're going to look at is chapter 5, verses 8, verses 5, chapter 5, verses 8, all the way to chapter 6, verses 9. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to look at the pursuit of meaning through wealth. And we're actually going to start beginning at chapter 6, because we finished chapter 5 last week. So this week we're going to start in chapter 6. So if you have your handouts, that's what's going to be our theme. And that's in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 8. I'm going to read over chapter 5, verses 8. I'm going to read through it, and then we will begin chapter 6 for tonight. So, read chapter 5, verses 8. And it reads in verse 8, if you see the oppression of the poor, and the violent taking away of justice and righteousness in the province, don't be surprised at the matter. For one higher than the high regardeth. And we talked a little bit about that last week, how there's always somebody that's in charge over the oppression of the poor. And that it's better for, in verse 9, it says, moreover, the profit of the earth is for all, and the king himself is served by the field. He that loves silver shall not be satisfied with silver. He that loves abundance will increase. So the first thing we talked about as we completed chapter 5 was the idea that people who are over or oppressing the poor is always someone that's higher than them. Solomon seemed to notice the great disparity of not only the rich getting richer, but the poor not being able to have anyone to help them. So this is one of the things that he points out at the end of chapter 5. And so tonight what we're going to look at is chapter 6. We're going to go over chapter 6. So if you have your Bibles, open up to chapter 6. We got finished with a little bit of the business of the outlines, and we're going to start tonight on chapter 6. And chapter 6 for the book of Ecclesiastes, what we're going to talk about tonight, is going to be a very interesting subject. It's going to be the subject of looking at life, not as life, but looking at the utility of life. In other words, how life is to be seen as something that should be enjoyed. Chapter 6 is not everyone enjoys life. There's two ways of looking at chapter 6 we're going to talk about tonight. The first way is the futility of life, that life comes and life goes. And two, not everyone enjoys life. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in chapter 6 tonight. Before we go to chapter 6, what we're going to look at is the great parable that I think is very interesting that will apply to this as we begin to see what Solomon means by life and having life with some form of meaning. Some form of meaning. And if you have your Bibles, turn with me briefly. We're going to go over this parable. It's a very familiar parable in the 12th chapter of Luke, where Jesus also touches on this, knowing the value of what it means to have wealth and what wealth really means in terms of enjoyment and the fulfillment of looking at wealth from a broader perspective that we're going to look at tonight. One of the things that Jesus spoke on, he spoke on a lot about money, and one of the ways that he saw money, obviously, is that people had a very close connection with money. And that people saw money. What Solomon's going to talk about tonight is he sees money as, and wealth and riches in a sense of enjoyment. And Jesus is going to put a different slant on it, and he's going to say that enjoyment in your riches is not found in riches themselves. Instead, it is found in a person being rich toward God. In a person being rich toward God. So when we look at the parable of the rich fool in chapter 12 and verse 13, I'm going to read that for you. It says, "Then one from the crowd said to him, 'Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me.' But he said to him, 'Man, who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you?' And he said to them, 'Take heed and beware of covetousness. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of things he possesses.' Then he spoke a parable to them, saying, 'The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And he thought to himself, within himself, saying, What shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will store my crops and my goods. I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, Fool, tonight your soul will be required of you. Then the which you have will they be. So is he who is rich toward God." So Christ brings this parable of the rich fool who stores all his wealth, and in the end ends up dying before he even gets a chance to enjoy his wealth. He is prepared to store his wealth. He is prepared to make a way of having more and more. He has made a way to prepare to make sure that he doesn't run out by building more barns. And the fact is that he dies suddenly. And so Jesus says that the focus of your life should not be on the wealth that you riches toward yourself, but instead you should build riches toward God. When we get to chapter 6 of Ecclesiastes, Solomon is going to say something similar. And Solomon says that we need to look forward to enjoying life, attaining wealth, but the enjoyment of life. And I believe that Jesus says, well, the enjoyment of life is found in God. Solomon says that truth to your life is not found in the enjoyment of things, but is found in the enjoyment of life. Now, what does Solomon say in chapter 6 of Ecclesiastes? So let's go back to Ecclesiastes. And he begins to show a kind of a bleak picture. And this is one of the things about Ecclesiastes as you read through it. You get kind of sad. You go, oh, man, this guy really has a grim picture of what life is about. And so he begins in chapter 6, and he's going to bring us to a very interesting place as he begins to examine this issue of how futile life really is. What's life really about? What's the essence of life? What does it mean in trying to attain wealth? And he's going to look at that tonight, and we're going to look at that in chapter 6. So let's look at chapter 6, and someone read for us in chapter 6. We're going to read the first two verses. In chapter 6. And what does it say?
There is an evil which I see under the sun, and it is common among men, a man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing for himself. Of all he desires, yet God does not give him power to eat of it, but a foreigner consumed it. This is vanity, and it is an evil affliction.
Now, very interesting text. We're going to look at this. We're going to contextualize it and bring it into everyday work today. So the first thing Solomon says, he goes, I've noticed something. There's something that's very evil that I see. And one of the things that he says that he sees, he says that an individual to whom God has given riches and wealth, this is what he's saying, people who have, it's not a good thing if God has not given them what? The empowerment to enjoy that. Instead, if he has given the enjoyment to another, rather than to the person who has acquired all of this wealth. And he says, this is very strange. This is vanity. This is a severe affliction. This troubles me. To see that a person could get all of this wealth, could live through life, and in fact die. And then someone else comes along and enjoys. In other words, he hasn't enjoyed the wealth that he has attained. Instead, he has worked to attain the wealth. He has worked to attain the wealth. And Solomon sees a lot of that in his day. He sees people who have a lot of stuff and they've attained a lot of things. And he says, these people, God has not given what? The desire or the drive or the enjoyment of these things. Instead, this stuff has been given to someone else after they die, and that person enjoys it. And he says, wow, this really troubles me. This is vanity. This is something that I've seen. And he says, it's strange. He said, this is a terrible thing that has happened. In fact, he says in verse 3, he equates it to something. What does he say in verse 3?
If a man be 100 children and lives many years, but his soul is not satisfied with goodness, or indeed he has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better than he.
Wow. So he says, look at this. He says, a person who has achieved the great wealth, but he has not achieved the enjoyment in life to enjoy what he has, or to enjoy life, or to understand the meaning of what it means to have these things and to enjoy them. He says it's almost as better that if a stillborn is born, that your life actually comes to a point of meaninglessness. Because you have not the ability to enjoy life. That's a very difficult thing. This is a very difficult chapter. The chapter to see the importance of not having, but the importance of enjoying life. The importance of not having things, the importance of enjoying life. In other words, Solomon says, it doesn't matter how many children you have, or how big a house you have, or how much money you have. And we see that every day when we turn on the news with celebrities, right? Celebrities, you would think, hey, I'm a celebrity, I'm popular, I have a lot of money, I have a lot of influence. And what? They're on drugs, they're alcoholics, they're committing suicide, their children, their homes are in turmoil. And you ask yourself, well, you have everything, right? Why is it that everything that you have, you still are not enjoying life? They can enjoy life, they need a bigger barn, they need more stuff. They're never satisfied with the aspect of enjoying life. Right? I have the kids. They or box much money on fancy. And they play with them for what, an hour, and they would in the cabinet a cake box or anything. So it goes to show that enjoyment is not in the things. Enjoyment is in the mindset. So the child has a mindset that we think, hey, this is what a child wants to enjoy when they see more bells and trinkets. But really, sometimes children are content in just simple things. And so what Solomon is aiming us to see is the issue of life and the enjoyment of life is not seen in a lot of things. In fact, it's not even seen in accomplishing a family. You can have 100 kids, he says. And the meaning of life is not even seen in that. In fact, he says, without understanding the enjoyment of life, you might as well be a stillborn child. You might as well have a miscarriage. Because for what he's observed, this is very depressing to him not to be able to enjoy life. Now that goes back to what Christ says about the rich fool. That he thought the enjoyment of life was what? In the accomplishing and building more barns. So he thought the enjoyment of life was seen in his security of things and his riches towards things and his ability to acquire more things, rather than, as Solomon says, in the enjoyment of life itself. Verse 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did it say, verse 4? Read it, verse 4.
For it comes in vanity and departs in darkness, and its name is covered with darkness.
Okay? So he really is talking about what? The miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying that it's almost like a baby, and the baby comes, nobody knows the baby's name, the baby dissipates, the baby goes into darkness, and it's nothing. And he's saying this is kind of like what life is like for many wealthy people. You look at many wealthy people who have lived life, and they may have accomplished a great deal, but nobody knows who they are. Who were the multimillionaires in the 1950s? Who were the multimillionaires in the 1940s? Who were the millionaires in the 1820s? It really is futile. These people come and they go. Life comes and it goes. People accomplish things and they move on. And this is really an awareness that you really see when you have children. When you grasp the concept of children, that one day, and then what? The children take over. Now, Solomon talks a little bit about that. We've talked a little bit about that, how Solomon says a lot of times people assume that when they die, they have, what, money or houses or whatever. Kids will appreciate it and this and that. And parents are kind of worried, I don't want to make sure you lose. And Solomon says, there's no guarantee of that. Once you're dead, what? Don't tell them what they're going to do with it. Mm-hmm. And he says Solomon struggled with that whole idea of assuming that because you have offspring, this brings you some sense of peace. And he's worried because he was worried about what's going to happen to it after he dies, if they're going to take care of whatever it is that he has given to them. And that's a very complex thing, who hold on to things that are just meaningless. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do with it. You're going to pass on and go on, and life goes on with or without you. Life continues on each day as we get closer. So Solomon brings us into the reality of this event in terms of people assuming that what will bring them security is wealth. Now in verse 5, so what does he say in verse 5? So I want to read that for us. Verse 5.
Moreover, he has not seen the sun, knoweth anything. This hath more rest than the other.
Okay? So verse 5 is a very interesting verse. It's continuing to tell you about this miscarriage. He says in verse 5, this miscarriage never sees the sun, the baby never sees the sun, the baby who dies in birth, what? Never sees the sun. The baby who dies in birth never knows anything. And it says, this baby who dies at birth during a miscarriage is better than the person who has attained wealth and has no happiness in life, has no meaning to the life, who is going on. Solomon is looking deep into the meaningless of life, the meaningless, that life is really meaningless with a sense of purpose and direction. And Christ says the purpose and direction of our life is to build up currency in God. It's not to build up currency in this life. It's not to build up currency in this world. It's not to build up world that we are uncertain about. We don't know when we're going to go, and there's no guarantee that because we are, Christians and we're, with the Lord and we go to church, that's not a guarantee that you will continue on. I have a good friend who just died the other day. He was a chaplain, a Christian man who was a chaplain. He died in the 60s. You think, oh man, this guy's really good. And he's a nice man, very nice man. He used to come here. We used to have chaplain classes here during the week at our church, and he was one of the guys who would come. And so to hear that he passed was kind of a shock, but it brings us into the awareness that we really don't know when we're going. And I think this is what Christ talks about with the parable of the rich person. There's a guy who's building up his barns, and all of a sudden he goes. And so Christ points out that we shouldn't be concerned about the riches that come and go. And then the same thing that Solomon seems to be pointing out, that your life without this enjoyment isn't the same. Actually, is meaningless. In other words, people are busy, according to Solomon, pursuing the riches of life. They're busy in pursuing how to get more. They're busy in pursuing of working, but they're not busy in pursuing to stop and, as Joe says, smell the roses. Mm-hmm. Slow down and enjoy what life is about. Verse 7, what does it say?
All the labors of man is for his mouth, and yet the soul is not satisfied. For what more has the wise man than the fool? What does the poor man have? Who knows how to walk before the living? Okay, that's a very good point that he makes in this particular text here. Very interesting point that he draws.
Do 6.
Is that? Did we do 6?
No.
Let's do 6. Oh, sorry, we did do 6. It says, even if a man, if you live to be what?
1,000 years twice.
Okay.
But has not seen goodness, do not all go to one place.
Now, when he says does not see goodness or does not enjoy things, that's what it's saying. It does not have a life of enjoyment. Mm-hmm. Enjoyment. It doesn't make any difference. Living 1,000 years and not having a happy life doesn't make any difference, because in the end you will end up in the same place as, quote unquote, the miscarriage, the baby. You die like that baby died. It's a meaningless existence. That's quite like what he's saying. The amount of time that you spend on earth is not a T of time. Being able to spend time with family, friends, and enjoy what life is truly about. The issue of enjoying life, being able to have a good time, being able to have a good laugh, to be able to enjoy peace and love of family and friends. This is what Solomon seems to be the meaning of life, not the issue of wealth. It really is. Now read verse 7 again, Cedric.
All the labors of man, his soul is not satisfied. For what more has the wise man than the fool? What does the poor man have? Who knows how to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Okay, now let's look at this real carefully, what Solomon seems to be pointing out. And this is what I think is a very important issue. Look at in verse 7 through 9. He says, what is that verse? Look at verse 7 again. What does that verse say in verse 7? It says, all the labors of man is for his mouth, and yet the soul is not satisfied. In other words, his appetite is not satisfied. His soul is not satisfied. A sense of, yes, physical attainment, but there also is a sense that man has a spiritual vacuum in his life. I was listening to a presidential candidate, this is a guy, and he's talking about how he wants to give people money. If you've ever heard of him, he says, give everybody $1,000. And he believes this is going to help people because the economy is going to get to the point where people won't be able to find work because
he believes technology is gonna put a great deal of people out of work, and people are going to need resources. So he believes that what you're gonna have to have eventually is everybody's gonna have to get some type of money. He believes the solution to be that would be that everybody would get money. But the bigger question is, that's not the only problem of man. The only problem of man is not that he needs money, not that he needs more. There's a great spiritual vacuum that's in the culture, in the world that we live in. So this is a guy who can work for food, but his soul yet is not satisfied. He can get his mouth satisfied, but his soul isn't satisfied. You know, this is a, you know, we look at it in Los Angeles, it's a tremendous homeless problem. As those of you who are listening online, if you go to some of the videos, you'll see some of the homelessness that's going on in the city of Los Angeles. But more importantly, what that is a reflection of, it's also a reflection of the great spiritual vacuum that's going on in the culture of Los Angeles. There's a great spiritual vacuum in that people have lost communities, people have lost connections with people, of a system of being people. People are living by themselves or on one-on-one mental illness. All vacuum that's missing for people, and they think the answer is merely to give people housing or money, but it still won't their souls. You know, Jesus talks about that. He says, well, what should it profit man if he should do what? Gain the whole world and lose his soul. And so Solomon brings that into clarity that the issue is not so much that a person is trying to get more money for labor, per se, and get more money to do things, and get more money to have things, because even if he gets more things to eat, his soul is not satisfied. In fact, there is no advantage over having this great amount of wealth or being intelligent over the that you end up in the same place anyway. You're going to die. That's one of his key points. And verse 9, again, verse 9, what does it say?
Better is the sight of the eye, and the wondering of desire. So is vanity and grasping for the wind.
So Solomon says it's better that you are able to be satisfied with what you see, and with really in reality also in what you have. Trying to want more. In fact, he said this is vanity, this is foolishness, this is grasping for the wind. This is the for hevel, as we talked about earlier in Ecclesiastes. Grasping for the wind. It's meaningless. You can't hold on to it. It has no meaning whatsoever. Verse 10, let's close it out.
He has been named already, but it is known that he is man, and he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he.
Now, this is a very good point. So Solomon says who you are and what you are trying to accomplish is not really important, because it's already been determined. Mm-hmm. Is that something? It's already been existed long. Whatever exists has already existed a long time ago. It's already been known that man is coming to an end. That man is frail. That man is weak. And the person who is controlling this is greater than you. So I think ultimately what he wants to build the reader back to is to see that your hope is in something that is greater than you. Your hope is in something that is greater than you have. Your hope is in something that is greater than the riches that you have. That you should be able to see God and see the enjoyment in God. We live in a world today where people are trying to find the enjoyment in everything but God. And they're really missing the point of what life is truly about. The essence that they're trying to see is that life is more than you trying to attain things. So there's an aspect of joy as something beyond the physical possession of things. I think a lot of times when I'm playing with my kids, in playing with them, I see the enjoyment of playing with them. But I recognize I'm working. When you're young, you're working. You realize how fast that time goes, you know? Mm-hmm. And we really should see life in a much broader spectrum that it's going to go by faster and faster and faster. Verse 11.
since there are many things that increase vanity, how is man the better? For who knows what is good for man in life? All the days of his vain life, which he passeth like a shadow. Who can tell a man what will happen after him under the sun?
So Solomon wants to bring clarity to the reality that you don't know what's going to happen. So since you don't know what's going to happen, you should see life as a way of you to enjoy. And the ultimate way for us as Christians that we see the enjoyment of life is finding meaning in life. Finding meaning in life with God, it brings us to and seen in its fulfillment in knowing God. God brings that sense of fulfillment. He brings that sense of peace. He brings that sense of clarity to what life is for. And he brings a sense of understanding about the joy that is found in him that can't be found in anything else. So let's continue to pray as we read the book of Ecclesiastes that it helps us, but it's also that we can use it to bring clarity to other people. So hopefully these outlines that you look at, go through them, read through them. We'll try to get through them again another time. We'll go over some of the stuff. But if you get a chance to go through them, and try to fill out some of the stuff and read back over the book of Ecclesiastes. It's really a good book to kind of go over and look at. Take time. Don't rush through the verses. But kind of let the verses seep through you. Get different versions of Ecclesiastes. If I were you, I would get at least different types of versions. Maybe ESV, NIV, New King James, King. Where it's not going to be talking so much in terms of what is vanity. He's going to try to give us a bigger picture of life on a bigger scale, and so the idea of what's vanity and what's useless is going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go into another dynamic, but he's going to take us through another realm of how he sees life as a whole. Any questions, any comments?
So how does he bring this back so that we're focusing on God? What is he trying to?
Well, the key point he brings to us constantly, enjoy life. And the way that we enjoy life is not trying to achieve things or trying to achieve security in things or even security in our life. And the reason why is that we're not sure life is going to end. And the things that we have won't bring us happiness or peace. They really end up being vanity. The true enjoyment is found in the simple things of life, beginning to slow rather than trying to enjoy the idea that having more will make you happy. Otherwise, life is not consistent of what? More things or more money. That's not going to bring you happiness. And this is what Solomon seems to have known. He said, well, I was the richest man in the world. I know for sure that what? More money won't bring you happiness because I have more money than everybody. I can be sure that working harder won't bring you more because I got more and more projects going, and that didn't bring you fulfillment either. So he's saying that the simple things in life to enjoy them, and as Christians, the true enjoyment comes through God. The true meaning to our hearts and minds brings us the peace and the understanding and the clarity to the Holy Spirit brings us the true happiness in life. There's nothing in the world that we have that will bring us the contentment and the joy that God will bring us, because we're designed that way. That's how we're designed. We're designed to be with God. So our fulfillment is found with God. Because of sin, that has blurred our vision of seeing God as the fulfillment of our life. Humans are designed to be with God. That's their fulfillment in life. They can't be happy without God because they're designed to be with God. The purpose of what we were created for. We were not to have, God living life, and then life means that I'm going to enjoy life. That's not why that's not what we're created. We're created for being with God. And that's very difficult for people to grasp, because people think the reason why I'm here on life is because I'm here to have a good time in life. I'm here to enjoy my own life. I'm here to have a good time in life. I'm here to have a good job or a career or a family or kids or a dog, or to find a cure to diseases. But that's not why you're here. That's not why we are existing as beings. We're existing as beings to be with God, because that's how God designed us to be. Now, because of the fall and because of sin, man doesn't see himself as being connected to God. He tries to find and in everything but God. And ultimately, what happens is that he finds out that this doesn't take place. He can't do it. He can't find peace or happiness without God, no matter how hard he tries. So Solomon is going to bring us to that, and he doesn't. Remember, Solomon is not bringing us necessarily into a biblical answer per se. He's just drawing and showing to us the conclusion that these things externally will not bring you happiness. He's noticing from a secular standpoint, not from a religious standpoint. He's just observing life and saying that I've seen everything under the sun. I've seen that these things are not going to bring you happiness. That you need to slow down and really enjoy life rather than trying to enjoy the things of life. That's kind of his notion. Any other questions? Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you for the word. Thank you for the help us. The guys that keep us, Lord, to know more. Pray, Lord, as we depart, that you guide us safely to our destination. Continue to watch over us and keep us.